All right. So last year, I did a segment called Not the Top 10 Seasons of Television of 2023, as well as Not the Top 10 Movies of 2023, I believe. This year, I'm going to name it a little bit different. I'm going to call it My Top Watches of the Year. Just because I think that the titling just is a little confusing. It might throw some people off. But then I realized that Carson Runquist actually made a video kind of similar to the videos I made last year. And he titled it that way. And I was like, you know what? This might give people a better idea of what it is I'm actually doing with my reviews. So let's go ahead and kick things off with movie number 10 on my top 10 list. We have Godzilla -1. I gave this movie a 9 out of 10. I missed the theatrical run last year, so I went to go see it this year in the theatrical re-release because I think for the 1 year anniversary or 50th anniversary of the original Godzilla film, one of the two, I can't remember, they put this movie back into theaters, and man, it was fun. This was the sort of movie that sort of felt like a classic Hollywood film, like a classic Hollywood blockbuster, in the sense of it had a lot of like positivity and like positive messaging about people coming together and working together to help each other in trying times, and also overcoming difficult odds to accomplish a nearly or an apparently insurmountable goal. I really, really appreciated the vibes of this movie. This felt like the perfect American blockbuster, despite this being a Japanese film created in Japan. A very great film. This certainly deserved to be re-released. If you haven't seen this movie and you like monster movies, definitely check this one out. I will say that it's not cartoonish in the way that a lot of the American Godzilla movies are cartoonish. So, you know, if you come into this movie looking for just a bunch of ridiculous Godzilla lasering skyscraper scenes, you're not going to be delivered on that exactly. Like, there is some of that in here, but it's not anywhere near the scale of the Lionsgate films. So you might want to go there for that sort of thing. Of course, if you're going to go there for that sort of thing, you're not really necessarily picky, I think, in the quality of the films you consume. So you'll be happy with that as well. I don't need to sit here and tell you how great this movie is, because you probably won't care. You just want to see explosions. Moving on here to number 9, we have Civil War. Now, when it comes to my favorite movies of the year, this probably is higher up, but when it comes to best movies of the year, this is going to have to settle for being a number 9. Now, while I think this movie should have been called Getty Images, not Civil War, I think this is still a fantastic film, and it does a great job of using a road trip to show how a civil war would affect the United States. And there are a little bit of hints and glimpses here and there as to what sort of events could cause a civil war as well. I think the great thing about this movie too is I think it's a great movie to show people who want a civil war, because this shows the brutality of what that will be, and also how the United States will never become as united as they are right now under civil war. You're gonna have multiple factions all across the country fighting for territory and fighting for authority. It's gonna be a big, huge mess. And one thing this movie doesn't wrestle with, which I think it should, is that, and I know I'm political, so I'm getting more into political commentary here, but is that if a civil war happens, other countries are going to start pouncing in and trying to exert their dominance over us as well. If they got into that, man, this movie would be incredibly dark. But no, they decide to spare us that and instead show us burning and dying bodies. So great movie, heavy to watch. If you've watched any of the footage from like the Black Lives Matter riots and stuff, a lot of stuff is going to be very, very familiar in this film. It's going to feel like you're watching a parallel universe, honestly. If you follow the news at all, this is going to feel frighteningly like things that we see every few years or so. The next movie, number 8, is I Saw the TV Glow. I also rated this number 9. This, honestly, as soon as I saw it, became one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that this movie does a fantastic job of showcasing identity issues and what it's like to sort of be in a very like isolated or sheltered environment, and then trying to figure out who you are as sort of a result of that. Now, you guys know that I'm right wing. One would not necessarily call me pro-trans, but I will say that, you know, despite this film being an allegory for the trans experience, and despite the creator of this movie actually being a trans woman, This film is still great, and its allegory is broad enough to apply to multiple forms of identity issues, not just gender dysphoria as well, but your personality, your likes, your dislikes, your fashion choices, all of those things. I think are sort of addressed, I guess, if that's the right word to use, by this movie, at least topically. So if you're looking for a movie kind of about like exploring identity in a multifaceted way that's not necessarily all that specific, highly recommend this movie. Fantastic watch. Depending on how close you are to experiencing some of these issues, this might be a very heavy movie for you to watch. So I do want to warn you there, is because, I'm on I saw the TV Glow subreddit, and I see many people being like, oh, I saw this movie and it wrecked me. So, if you don't want to see a movie that might cause a strong emotional response from you, and these are issues that you've dealt with in the past, I might not recommend you watch this, but, if you think you can handle it, definitely recommend it, because it's a fantastic movie. It's criminally underrated. I really wish more people were talking about this movie. All right, here we have The Line, which also was criminally underrated. I also gave this a 9 out of 10. It's shocking that I didn't see more people talking about this. I've been lobbying for Carson Rehnquist to discuss this movie, just because this seems like the type of movie that would be in his wheelhouse. As much as Barbie was a movie that was by a woman for women, this feels like a movie that was by men for men, and it sort of trades the Barbie dream house for a frat house, kind of showcasing sort of the dangers of allowing unbridled, immature masculinity to run wild. And maybe masculinity isn't the right word, but if you've ever heard the story that if you put a lot of boys together, that they will start abusing each other, this movie showcases this fantastically. Now, I will say that I've never been in a frat, never participated in frat culture. I will say I went to college and I was part of a bro unit. I went to a Christian university, so they didn't tolerate frats and stuff like that. But the fun aspects of this movie, I've certainly experienced some fun things like that. The exaggerated shouting in the halls, shouting chug, chug, chug while you're drinking a beverage. Now, we didn't drink alcoholic beverages, but stuff like that. Having pizza parties and things, those are things that we all indulged in. But there are darker things that take place here that I'm not going to necessarily discuss, but they're just things to be observed if you choose to watch this film that we did not engage in. And to a certain point, this movie made me glad, actually, that I went to a Christian college and not a secular college, because of a culture like this is extremely destructive, and this film showcased why. It's also kind of interesting because I think one of the main things about this film that it shows is what happens when you don't have an authority figure in these individuals' lives that helps them mature, especially considering the fact that these people, for the most part, they're already basically abused in their, maybe not abused, but they don't have healthy home lives. So they don't have healthy home lives, and they go to college and they foster an unhealthy culture there. Which part of that is just because that's all that they know. And part of that is that they're just hurting others to distract themselves from the pain that they're feeling in their own personal life. So great movie, fantastic movie. If you're looking around and being like, man, Barbie was a movie that addresses femininity and from a feminist lens. I really want to see a movie that sort of addresses masculinity and stuff. The Line, I think, is a perfect movie for you. Definitely go check it out. It's criminally underrated, and also, to put a cherry on top, it's the last on-screen appearance of Angus Cloud. It's the last thing that was filmed before his death, and the last thing to be released as well. So if you're a fan of Angus Cloud or Euphoria, then definitely check out this movie. Also, number 6 is The Wild Robot. This is a fantastic film. It's an allegory about something that I think if I told you, it'd be a spoiler, but fantastic movie. It's very difficult for me to talk about this movie without giving spoilers, surprisingly, but I will say the cast is incredible. I think it's a shame. I saw a video that brought this up, how a lot of animated movies don't have voice actors now. They have celebrity actors, and we actually kind of see this here with the cast. We've got Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, who else? Ving Rhames, Mark Hamill. A lot of famous faces here using their voices instead. I think I don't know if I want to say it's a shame, because especially Pedro Pascal did an incredible job with the voice acting in this film. Lupita Nyong'o as well. The both of them are completely unrecognizable, and I think that shows how great they are at voice acting. But I will say, it's a shame that the market for voice acting has shrunk, because I would have liked to see more voice actors and voice actresses in this movie. I would rather see like a very famous voice actress be cast in movies like this rather than like a bunch of, live action movie stars. That's just my personal take. Still a great movie. I think that it's not entirely complex, which is why it's so low on this list, but still tells a fantastic story. I do love this movie. Number 5 is a movie called American Fiction. This is an incredible film. It's a great original story about sort of what happens when you're an educated black man trying to be recognized for what you do, but then people who are not black are like, well, the things that you're doing, you don't seem that black. And it tells this through the lens of, storytelling. This guy is a writer. He writes books, and people want a black book from him. He has trouble selling some of his books because they don't seem black enough. And so in a fit of rage, he decides to write a satirical black story filled with black stereotypes and negative depictions of black men and black women. That book goes gangbusters. And so he sort of puts up this facade of being this criminal who can't say his real name because he's on the run from the law, which itself is hilarious, going around to sell this book while he himself was conflicted about how long should he take this parody, right? At what point is this going too far and actually perpetuating the exact same thing that he is sort of trying to decry and wrote the entire story in a fit of rage over? So great movie. If you've ever read the article, A Black Professor Trapped in an Anti-Racist Hell, the intro to this movie feels a lot like it was ripped right from the pages of that newspaper article, which is fascinating. One of my favorite opening scenes of all time. Absolutely love it, especially as a black dude who, based on the things I engage with and things, there are certainly people who would say that I'm not black enough. So especially as someone of that ilk as well, really, really, really do like the movie American Fiction. Highly recommend watching it if you have not engaged with this film yet. We also have this movie. This is number 4. This is The Iron Claw. I got the Blu-ray for this. No, it's actually a 4K digibook, I want to say, from France. Fantastic film. Amazing. Very, very emotional. I will say that, like, at some points emotionally, this does feel like just getting hit in the face with a ton of bricks over and over again. But that's just the nature of the tragedy of this story. If you know what happened to this family, then I don't need to spell it out for you. And if you don't know, then it's a spoiler. But this movie tells it in a way that even though it's extremely, extremely emotional, even then they're pulling punches, and they intentionally choose to leave out a family member because of that punch that they do decide to pull. Fantastically shot. The acting is incredible. Zac Efron, this should turn around Zac Efron's career in the same way that 13 Hours turned around the acting career of John Krasinski. This is a fantastic film, well acted, nearly perfect, I would say, which is why I rated it a 9 out of 10. It's also why this is the next to last movie on this list that I rated a 9 out of 10, with the exception of one other movie, just because this movie was so fantastic. Coming up in third place, we're up to the top 3, is Anatomy of the Fall. Fantastic movie. Absolutely amazing, delicious, and delectable. Now, in a world where everyone seems to be trying to create Agatha Christie mysteries, Justine Triet here decides to make a Justine Triet mystery by, rather than doing a very subjective or sort of behind the scenes style of a mystery where you go back and show who actually killed the person, and then you conclusively determine who did or didn't do it. Instead, this movie sort of goes in depth on what was the nature of the relationship that would have led to this even happening in the first place. And in the end, I know this is a slight spoiler, but you don't actually know for sure who actually killed the husband. Now you can come up with your own theories. Everyone has their own opinions, but at the end of the day, it's more about what it's like to go through one of these, and it's a more objective look at this rather than an omniscient view that is provided to us by the likes of Agatha Christie. Not so much Sherlock Holmes, because they don't do like flashbacks and things that sort of take you back to the actual murder itself, but still fantastic movie. I can barely recommend it enough. If I could recommend it a little bit more, then I would give it 10 stars rather than 9. But yeah. Now we have the final 2 movies on my list. The number 2 movie that I saw for the first time this year is Dune Part 2. Fantastic movie. This was, in my opinion, perfect, because I don't think there's a single thing that they could have done to make this movie better. The pacing was fantastic. The storytelling was fantastic. The acting was impeccable. The visually, absolutely stunning. I saw it in standard. I saw it in IMAX. It is amazing in both presentations. I'm just really waiting for that third movie so that we can have an amazing trilogy to just watch back to back to back over and over and over again. Bro, I'm going to tell my kids this was the original trilogy. This is how good this movie was. Bro, forget Star Wars. Dune is where it's at. This movie is amazing. I highly recommend you watch both Dune Part 1 as well as Dune Part 2, because both movies are incredible. Now, the last movie in the top 10 movies I saw for the first time in 2024 list is Interstellar. Believe it or not, I had not seen this movie before, but I chose to see it during the IMAX theatrical re-release, and this movie knocked my socks off. Now, is this my favorite Christopher Nolan movie? No, I think I like Tenet a little bit better, but I have to admit this movie is a lot better than Tenet. This movie deals with the themes of ultimately love, but also weighing the risks when it comes to determining what to do or not to do in a do or die scenario. And it explores in a very creative way. I think it's pseudoscientific, but it's pseudoscientific in a way that's believable, right? Like, only Christopher Nolan can, make people with a straight face talk about the fifth dimension, and then you are thinking about the fifth dimension, not understanding it, and then you think you're the dumb one, right? Not the fictional scientists talking about something that's not actually real. Amazing movie, and very, very beautiful as well. Like, I was watching this movie and I was like, I understand why they showed this in a space museum, right? Like, it's amazing. And like the way that some of the stuff in space is shot, it actually felt very relaxing, despite this movie being one fraught with tension and stress. Something about many of the shots of them just floating about in space just felt like I myself was taking a little vacation. Amazing movie. If you haven't seen this movie, you absolutely must. I think that IMAX theatrical re-release is concluded, but you can still buy this on Blu-ray or watch it on iTunes or streaming services or whatever. I highly suggest you go do that. Incredible film. All right, so those are the top 10 movies that I saw in 2024. I'd like to know, what were your top 10 movies that you saw for the first time in 2024? If there are any movies that I did not see in 2024 that you think I should watch in 2025, leave them down in the comment section below. I will say, generally, I avoid things that have nudity in them. So if you're going to say something like Challengers or Poor Things, like, you're probably right. Those are probably fantastic movies, but I just ain't going to watch them. Sorry. But I still appreciate your recommendations nonetheless. So looking forward to hearing all of those in the comments below.